Thank you for joining us today. Early start in the Monday morning. I hope everyone had a good weekend. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a City of Hardyville City Council workshop, 205 Main Street, Hardyville, South Carolina, 29927, Monday, January 22nd, 2024, at 10 a.m. So again, this is a workshop, so the rules of order are relaxed. We will, as is our apparel. So just remind everybody, there's no order of speaking. Just be sure to wait till the previous speaker has completed their thoughts. So at this time, I will turn it over to Mike. We have 4 items to review today. Mike, take it away.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We do have 4 items. So our first one is a multifamily development on Medical Center Drive. We do have Miss Katie here for a brief unveiling, and then we do have the applicant here, and then this is staying with the council's procedure about after planning commission approval, it goes to the city council for a workshop, more of an informative workshop. So, Mrs. Katie.
Morning.
Good morning.
We have Medical Center Drive multifamily. This is an application for an initial master plan. It is located within the Coastal Land Tract Plan Development District, which is kind of where the hospital is. So I don't know why I'm missing one slide, but you will see the property is outlined in red here. This is the hospital. Then you have the hotels, I-95, exit 8, and 278 here. Can we get it's skipping? Yeah, maybe. Sorry, I'm missing every other slide. I just want to make sure you get all the information. There we go. It is 26 acres. Um, Again, I'll fast forward to here. So the property is located on a primarily wooded lot here behind the Hampton Inn and Fairfield Inn properties on Medical Center Drive. You had a copy of the proposed master plan in your packets, and it shows the proposed layout. There is a 4-acre commercial piece up at the front along Medical Center Drive, and then there are 2 access points for the multifamily area, and the amenity areas are in this area of the property here. Maximum of 360 units. And then again, the 4.8 acre future commercial development parcel. The land use element and economic development element both encourage mixed use developments. This development would provide opportunity for housing in close proximity to the hospital, schools, hotels, and I-95, which would be an increased access to local employment opportunities, which is consistent with the comprehensive plan as well, and reduce overall commuting distance and costs for residents. The open space and connectivity plan is shown here. There are sidewalks and pathways throughout the development. We did ask the applicant to plan to connect the sidewalk to the sidewalk that the city is putting in along Medical Center Drive, and they have agreed to extend that up along the front of their property as well. Let's see. The perimeter buffer that's required in the PDD is 25 feet, and that has been provided with a 20-foot setback from the internal roads. The proposed plan does exceed that requirement. And it does require minimum open space of 50% for multifamily residential projects. There is no minimum active open space in the Coastal Land Tract PDD. Planning Commission did review this and recommended approval with no conditions. And I am going to introduce Connor Blaney at this time to add any information that he'd like to add. If you need the pointer, it's there.
Good morning, Connor Blaney with Ward Edwards Engineering. It's good to be here. Thank you. Katie, thank you for the great introduction. As Katie mentioned, this is near Exit 8. It's a multifamily development in the Coastal Land Tract PUD. The developer's Hill Point. It's a product and a developer that's done other quality residential apartment complexes Across the East Coast, they haven't done too many in South Carolina, but they're really trying to get integrated, not only in South Carolina, but this area specifically. Most familiar, 1200 North Oakity was the same product, same developer, which is currently in the design process. Happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Anyone?
You're all set with your stormwater retention. That's all been factored in.
Yes, so that has been part of the master plan for preliminary sizing. The final details of that will be when we get into the actual calculations through the design process. But all the initial aspects of allocating enough area has been accounted for.
Okay. I'm not sure if this is a time to ask this question, but the city has been working real hard for the affordable housing plan. And other apartment that we have approved have agreed to make some type of arrangement for our first responders, a certain percentage of the development for first responders at either a reduced rate or a more affordable rate. We want to attract policemen, firemen, teachers, nurses, all those first responders. Will this be available with this development?
That will be available. I know Hill Point, the developer, they have found on other developments, they encourage and like to have police officers and that type of personnel on site living in those units. And I know on other projects, they've actually allowed, I think, rent-free for a police officer in the complex. That was promoted in the 1200 development. I'm sure that's something they would also be willing to consider here as well.
Okay, because I would like to make sure this is all put down into writing before this comes to council, so there's nothing down the road that there would be any confusion for. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
This looks like a really nice project and in a good location in several ways. And like everything, there's bad location in other ways, but be that as it may. These apartments are I'm looking at the buildings. So these are typical apartment buildings where it's one building, couple floors. How many?
Each building proposed in this development is a 3-story building at a maximum height of 42 feet 9 inches.
So it looks like, I'm looking at the maps, there's 36 units in each. And I'm also looking at the parking, which is right out. And this is a typical kind of apartment building. Are there sidewalks throughout this, or is it just, are there sidewalks?
Yeah, so the plan right on the screen, everything, those red lines across all the frontage of the parking is proposed sidewalks for interconnectivity.
So I have, the map I'm looking at has like a salmon color, goes around the building. It looks red here. Is that where the sidewalks are?
So the sidewalks are all of those.
All of those, okay. So
those
on page 15 on my map, it's a salmon colored.
Okay.
So, okay, that's great. And all the pocket parks are on one side. Is that
Yes,
correct?
the developer tried to concentrate the pocket parks around the amenities such as the mail kiosk, the clubhouse and pool recreation area. There are going to be open areas such as like between these buildings that could help promote like a picnic table and benches, things like that.
Right.
But the actual open parks are concentrated by the main amenities area.
So that building over on the right, separates Pocket Park A and B, that's where the amenity center is?
That is correct. This building right here
Right.
is the main amenity building clubhouse. This area is allocated for the pool.
Allocated for a pool. Okay. Great. I like it.
Thank you.
Looks good. Parks, sidewalks, apartments near the hospital. Follow up on Steve's question, though. I remember it was a few years ago when Mike and I first were approached on a project like this. I don't know if it's the same people, but Steve talked about the first responders, but have you thought about any collaboration with the hospital in terms of nursing housing?
I am not aware of that and would have to defer to the developer to answer that specifically.
In working with the CEOs of the hospitals, and of course, this is going to be Novant, but working with both Buford and what was Tennant, one of the things that we've been told is the problem in recruiting nurses in this area is that they don't have a place to live. And so Pooler has much more availability of apartments than Hardyville does in this whole area. And young nurses are choosing to go there. And that's why spots are open in our hospital for nurses. I'm going to make a request, and perhaps before first reading, you can reach out to Ryan Lee of Coastal Carolina Hospital, and and now they're undergoing a change, so I don't know how much they can talk, but I'd like you to at least reach out to them, or the developer to reach out to them, and see if there is some way that we could designate some opportunities for nurses who work at the hospital. Okay? Thank you. Anyone else?
I do have one more follow-up question. Given the proximity of your development to 95 and the exit ramp and everything else as all that changes, do you have anything built into the project for noise deadening between the interstate and your project?
So there is no additional proposed noise abatement proposed for this project, but one thing we did account for in the land planning is we didn't put any of the buildings along I-95, and we changed the orientation such that the edge, so no units are facing it, even though there's a parking. The closest corner of the building is over 180 feet from the actual I-95 road. And then the orientation, we don't expect there to be noise issues internal, but also Hill Point's confident in their quality of product, in which their insulation should abate the noises when you're inside.
Because it's also a visibility issue from the interstate. The green area there between the parking lot and the DOT right-of-way, what type of plantings do they propose to have in there? I mean, bushes, just grass, what are we talking about?
Yeah, that green edge along the north of this plan is an undisturbed buffer. Right now, it's mainly planted pines with some other native species that should remain undisturbed. The developer can enhance that with additional plantings, but the existing foliage is not to be removed within that.
Not to be removed. What's the width of that?
I believe it's 25 feet. And then outside of that, the road is a good bit because the right of way for
Yeah.
I-95 is very large as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
it's on that map on page 16, Steve, you'll see it better.
Okay,
25 feet and then the road. And then the parking lot before you get to the buildings.
okay. Visibility from the interstate, to keep it, nobody wants to look at a parking lot just straight off the interstate, and I don't think the folks in the apartments want that either. So as long as there's gonna be a buffer there and you're gonna leave the existing trees and maybe add more plantings, I'm fine with that then.
So, going off of what the mayor and Mr. Mearsman said, so it is a 25-foot perimeter per the PUD setbacks, correct?
believe so.
Because I did go and had a chance to read the coastal PUD thingamajig, so, and it calls for a 25-foot building setback around the perimeter of the planned unit development. Okay, that's great. Tree preservation, you just said what that's going to be. I noticed 2 dumpsters, 2 locations for dumpsters for 360 units. How often will the trash be removed? Because you don't want creepy crawlies back there with trash piling up.
Right. Each dumpster pad location is going to be a double wide, so it can handle 2 dumpsters. As far as the frequency of the programming of how often they expect those to need to be picked
Emptied
up
out,
and emptied, I'm not sure. I can check with the developer and come back with that response.
Okay. So there's a total of 360 units. How many of these are 1-bed, 2-bed, 3-bed, and what's the square footage roughly?
Hill Point, what they've been successful with is 100% of the proposed units are 2-bed, 2-bath.
2-bed, 2-bath, okay. Okay, and of course, it's all for rental, correct? Okay. Talking about the parking, according to the PUD, it says that there will be two slots per unit. Okay. Landscaping medians and all of that fun stuff, okay. Let me see. And there will be a foundation buffer of at least 8 feet wide, because that's what the PUD stated as well. So is that translating in here?
I don't know if we've specifically labeled it, but I can commit that every building will have an 8-foot landscape buffer to
Okay.
exceed that.
All right, so the outside air conditioning units, are they going on top of your roof or are they down below?
I don't know for certain, but I know Hill Point in the past is likely going to propose them to be in front on the first floor with additional landscaping around.
Around it, okay, okay. And the mayor covered the sidewalk thing, tree preservations, pocket parks, and I think I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more. Phasing. Is this going to be built as one, or are you going to build this in phases?
The developer is proposing to build and close out this entire residential portion of the proposed work in a single phase. They are not proposing any of the commercial work or what's shown as that white future area.
Sure, understandable. My concern is that, so there will be no occupancy of any of the apartments until the project is completed, correct?
That's the proposed plan.
Okay, thank you.
One more question. I see bodies of water, and since it's going to be children living there, will you have adequate signage about warning people about the potential of alligators and all of that?
I think that's a great idea. That should be incorporated in the plan. I'll talk to the developer about signage, safety aspects.
Yes.
Oftentimes we do like a 4-foot fence around it just for an extra layer of safety.
Okay, that's great.
But I'll have those discussions with the developer
Okay.
through the design.
Thanks, Connor.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I think we're done.
Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a good one. Because they did a good job, that's why.
That's a good project and a good spot.
Excellent project.
It's the type of project we need.
Yep.
And hopefully, one of the big problems that we face is like the cottages that are going up now. These are all market prices. And so the market will demand what the market can get. And that may not necessarily fit the need of young nurses, for example. But with everything 2-bedroom, there's a the potential for sharing.
Yes.
And that's a good thing. Also, if we can get this template together that we're working on and set aside for some for nurses and teachers and police and fire, particularly the young people coming into the area and getting into their professions. This could be a great location.
I very much appreciate the fact that they're doing this as a single phase. I'm not a big fan of phased building of apartments simply because of the added potential for accidents and other things as you have construction and residents that close together in these. And I understand that it's just the way it is, but I'm happy to see that this one is a single phase, and I wish they all were.
Yeah, that's good. Is the cottages that continue to progress, are they just one phase, or did they start renting yet?
They are doing multiple phases. I believe there were like 6 originally, but they may have changed their phasing a little bit. But yeah, they'll be doing multiple phases. The first phase is almost to the point where they'll be doing some renting. They're not quite there yet.
I noticed when they first posted online, they had posted a 500 square foot, 1-bedroom at $1,400. Then all of a sudden, they took that price off, and I've heard rumors that could go for $2,000, $2,200. What have we heard about that?
I've been researching this. My lease is up in May, so I'm looking at all options. They state now, in my correspondence with the property management folks, that they are going to start showing and leasing. They show virtual now, but only virtual, as of February 1st. I'm hearing from the inspections department that might be a week or two off, but they are looking to start that first group of leases here soon. Their prices are not much high. I will say, compared to my apartment in Bluffton, they are slightly lower, but very, very, very close. And so, yes, the 14 might be a little low, but not much.
Okay, so in that range, it's not the 2,000, 2,200 that I heard from some realtors.
Those are
that
for
they-
the 2 bedrooms with garage, much
Okay.
bigger, much larger.
Okay,
Those are the 2 and 3 bedrooms are 2,000 to 2,500 easy. So
and is that what the market is bearing now, Brianna?
yes,
See, that's what I was talking about before. Unless we do something to set aside, come up with a program to set aside for particularly young people coming into our area who want to work in this area and live in this area, those market prices they're gonna drive some people away.
I'm not proud to say it, but I'm paying similar to what I was paying for my mortgage for
Yeah.
my apartment. And I just want to throw that out there because I'm experiencing it right now, and it's nice for me because you don't have all that other home ownership cost
Right.
and other things. But yes, there are. It is a typical thing, and these places are staying leased out. They're not suffering.
We talk about attainable housing, affordable housing, any name you want to call it, and it seems just we're going backwards. I mean, and it's nothing that we can control. I mean, the builders, developers, that's something under their control. I don't know how to contain it, but the mayor is right. I mean, we're making it tougher and tougher and tougher for folks to basically live where they can work, and we want them here. I don't know what the answer is, but
We have maxed out, I will say that. On my new lease that's being proposed to me is not skyrocketing like it has in the past. Now I'm on the edge of Bluffton, so where I currently reside, but I do think that maybe things are starting to stabilized slightly, but I'm certainly no market analyst.
In my development, I'm seeing 1,300 square feet for $3,500 a month. That's, that's not, that's not, and granted, it is the development, but that's what it's going for. And we said, I don't know what the answer is, but if we don't keep looking for that answer, we're never gonna find anything.
I do, to just kind of piggyback, I don't want to be a total salesperson on that property. And good morning, I forgot to say good morning. But I do believe that that location will help a lot. It is a very prime location, and you mentioned teachers, nurses. That is a perfect spot for our area. So I think there's going to be a good product there.
Great. No, I like the product. It fills the need. And it's well done with the sidewalks and the parks and the amenity center. It's a good-looking project.
Mr. Mayor, do you think the hospital will probably think about, as instead of offering a bonus, maybe offer to subsidize the rent so they can use that as a carrot to attract the best of the best for
That's
them?
why I asked them to work with the hospital, because it's possible. Now, one of the problems in that, there's different ways, but there are fair housing laws that they
Right,
must, you can't say, oh, okay, I'm reserving this for a nurse because of the fair housing laws, but perhaps they will want to give some sort of subsidy to housing, and since it's right there, and it would be a great way to attract. There's so many more young. Look at what USCB is graduating and TCL. There's a lot of, and they're from this area, or if they're not, then they could, we could retain them in this area. So I think this product could do that, and that's why I asked them to. Whether they'll get an answer now, probably not, because they're in the process of this, the turnover to Navant. So I don't think they'll be able to make any decisions. But then again, you're 2-3 years away before they start renting here.
Right.
So there's, at least what we can do is open the door.
And let them,
Right.
Put this
So we should press this first and second reading, and that they talk together, and maybe there is some sort of, okay, we'll try, at least that, because it's ideal to recruit young nurses. And even Buford Memorial is right down the street, on that site there. So,
We have multiple new developments coming on, the cottages, the apartments and all of that. Maybe ever given a thought, because we do have a facility that we could host it at the rec center, is to have a Hardyville type housing event. Invite these developers with the apartments and the cottages and stuff let them set up a table and let the community, we could let the hospital's personnel know that it's available, USCB. I mean, if we're talking about doing something for affordable housing, take that step and put it out there to the public and invite them to come and see what we have available. It may be worth a shot.
that's an excellent idea. Remember, Mike, years ago, we got invited, before they even broke ground, remember Okeechobee Pines? And we went in the Hampton Inn and they showed us, because that company was a privately owned family company out of Arizona. And they came in and showed us the whole concept via storyboards and other buildings that they had. And it was really very informative. So that might be a good idea. So
With the hospital, with the turnover of ownership in that, we can wait for that to see if they would be amicable to some type of helping their employees, but do we want to wait that long? Like, you've said they're getting ready for the first phase of those cottages to open up. That, we take the lead and introduce people, I guess, is what I'm saying. We can introduce the potential the need for the housing, the hospital personnel, the USCB personnel, to them. It's a neutral ground, just an idea. I mean, it's nothing more than a housing fair, but it's a step.
So, Steve, I think it's a great idea. I'm going to leave it in your hands to make sure that this happens.
Okay.
Coordinate with staff in the rec center, and maybe it could be, even at the hospital or whatever. Why don't you be our coordinator?
I'll take
for-
that
for
on.
that project.
All right.
Okay, good. Good idea, and thank you for volunteering.
That'll teach you.
Yeah. Val, you got any good ideas I can volunteer you for? Okay, what's next, Mr. Zimboy?
The second agenda item is the proposed municipal zoning and development ordinance. We're pleased that this didn't take as long as the comprehensive plan, but no, we are making major progress. I think the council recalls, I lose track, 3-4 months ago, we did have a workshop. We went through the detailed chapter by chapter, article by article, and then there were some significant not significant, we'll say there were some changes done by the planning commission, so we're here to represent that to the council. Our goal is to have this presented in February, so hopefully with the council's approval, end of February, early March, we can have a new municipal zoning development ordinance. So, Ms. Snowden.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
And yes, I wanted to start off the presentation on the MZDO, kind of talk about a history. And 18 years ago this week, I began here at the city of Hardyville, and we were working on the MZDO. Here we are, gone not full circle. I guess lots of loops and circles. But between 2006 and 2009, it was definitely driven by drafts of ordinances, kind of boilerplate ordinances from the Council of Governments and from the city attorney who borrowed, and at that point we borrowed from counties and other rural jurisdictions because we were a very small community with some growing pains, but not really prepared. It was the first time we had a planning department. We were struggling. So between 2006 and 2009, there was a lot of piecemealing. And that's the best way I can say it. We did pieces and parts of the ordinance at times. I will say we worked on signs for about 4 years. I know that's longer than the 2006 to 2009, but and I don't know that the signs we've updated them since then. So the sign ordinance and some of the pieces have been revised multiple times since I've been there. Typically, the way state with American Planning Association, where everyone says you do your comprehensive plan, and then your zoning ordinance is the teeth. Your zoning ordinance and land development regulations are the teeth to enforce that plan. We did our plan afterwards. So we've always been doing things our way, basically because we're busy. We have small staff, and that's not an excuse, but we're getting done what we could get done. So the focus has always been on signs, mobile food, vendors, mobile homes, whether we were going to have them or not, how we were going to have them, and terminology. Even since this council's been sitting in the past year, we've talked a lot about different definitions for different phrases that we used a lot, density and among other things. And once again, you need to focus on your comprehensive plan before, not after. We did. It took us a long time, but we got that comprehensive plan in place. And we're ready to start reviewing that comprehensive plan as soon as we get this document going. So it's a never-ending cycle. You want it to be dynamic. You want both documents to be dynamic, but not piecemealed. So that's just my little bit of my planning director rant and rave, and let you know that we are passionate about getting this done. What has occurred? It's an update. We've done a number of different changes. Kept the shell of the ordinance, but we've really put a hard look at our downtown zoning districts, and by including some certain things, signage, of course, we're back there again, but I think we're finally getting it right. as well as open space, landscaping, a number of things, stormwater. Um, things that are very important as we're growing and developing and learning what the deficits we've had are. Planning Commission, after the workshop, they did make some revisions. We are all the version we sent to you are the revisions since Planning Commission. We felt that was important. The state law says that your ordinance is a product of the comprehensive, a product of the Planning Commission, and that's what we've done. We've worked with the Planning Commission, and this is the product that we are presenting to you. Mrs. Baines has reviewed it to make sure we're in keeping with state law and legal aspects, and we're there to move forward. Slight revisions we do believe now need to be made that have happened in the last week with some regional traffic concerns that we've heard recently. Staff's ready to get those together and give you some recommendations. Mr. Davis and Miss Woodruff, I'm already marrying you, Kitty, have understand what needs to be put in there and for that, and make sure we're compatible with the region on traffic. As I mentioned, transect zones in the downtown White Hardy Boulevard area. It's going to be the great way as sites like Wendy's, sites like Burger King, some of the other things that are closing down get redeveloped. We will have these in our hand to offer better ways to redevelop and get White Hardy Boulevard looking and functioning like we know it needs to. Tree preservation, we put a lot of time and energy into that. There's some other things that go along with that, some open space, some other landscaping. And most importantly, finally, consistency with the comprehensive plan. By piecemealing a zoning ordinance, by piecemealing the comp plan, you have lots of places where the ordinance was contradicting with itself. And we do not need to have those contradictions. It's hard administratively, it's hard politically, it's hard for the developers to know what to do, and the citizens to know what they're asking for. Because when they look for something, they want to make sure they have. I thought I missed one. Another slide that or statement that I wanted to make sure that we covered was the fact that with this consistency with the comprehensive plan, with this piecemealing, we have gone over and over and over, kind of a repetitive thing to make sure that we do not have that inconsistency. If we're mentioning it one time, we're going to make sure we cover it. There were some places that you'll notice maybe from watching a planning commission where planning commission wanted things added or phrased it a little differently. We were very careful when working with the consultants, working with everyone else to make sure that we were on par, not repetitive, but not contradicting ourselves. So that's where some of that stands. Mr. Brown, you want to offer a few words about stormwater and where we've gotten there, or you
I can. I mean, do you want me to go through the brief, or what do you want me to do?
briefly?
Well, I'll try to go through it briefly if you like. Sure.
You have
Oh, look, he comes up with 8,000 pages, and he says he's going to do it briefly. Okay.
I was there at the planning commission when he did it briefly too.
So he beats me.
The,
switch out the PowerPoint.
It's PDF, but.
PDF.
before we, why don't we, John, why don't you, because that's such a comprehensive subject.
Yep.
I'd like to ask Bronna some questions about what she presented, rather than come back to it. Explain what's in there about traffic concerns.
What I mentioned that we need to update.
Yes,
I'm on.
explain that.
Thank you, Ms. Woodruff, since you were at the meeting. Unfortunately, I wasn't there.
So, Matt Davis and I attended a meeting on Friday with the technical committee for LATS, and we talked a lot about what the region can do in general to have some kind of like a double check on traffic, so you have a lot of concerns. A traffic engineer comes up, they're working on behalf of the developer, and how do we should we have another set of eyes on those? Some of the areas, some of the other municipalities and counties in the area are talking about going to a agreement of you use these 3 traffic engineers, and if you use those 3, you don't have to have a second set of eyes. What we are looking at potentially proposing to you is something along the lines of in Article 7, where we talk about process, adding a requirement for that second check on the TIA, even if it's one of those 3 that the others are using. We just want another set of eyes to look at them. So we are going to build into the process where the applicant, as part of their fees, is going to have a second set of eyes on those. So we're going to put some language together. Unfortunately, this was Friday morning, so we haven't really had a
Right.
chance to get that in there for you. But prior to first reading, that's something that we would like to consider.
Great, I like that. The next thing was tree preservation. And I'm going to preface it by saying, you know, I know that building supply place by the cancer center, that was zoned. That never came to council. And I understand you have limitations on what you can do. But I'm extremely disappointed that that's going to be visible, and those, you know, they left like 3 trees. Couple parts to tree preservation. First of all, in areas that are so, they're beautiful to the low country. 278, it would be a shame if we turned 278 looking like Bluffton. And you know, and I'm not trying to criticize it, it's just to have nothing but businesses and housing developments right there and destroy that tree line. I would love to see that preserved and not have the ability to cut down all the trees along 278 as we develop it. That's one thing. And the other thing is as we go in these developments, you know, I always was under the impression 15 trees per acre. And I thought that was wonderful, except there's exceptions and things allowed. I think that tree preservation goes along with what I just said before, that these buffers should totally preserve the tree line, like that project that we just said. There's a 25-foot buffer. They said they will not touch 25 feet of trees. That's a lot different than building up to it. You have a John Harper kind of situation, and then you're going to put some inadequate berm. And we're going to destroy John Smith Road. Going to happen. No question. We've already approved stuff. We're going to destroy it. So how do we have things in there to, A, when you say 15 trees per acre, we do not count the trees that we saved? And how do we preserve major throughways to the tree line?
Yes, sir. And we have, that has been one of the benefits. I hate to say if there's a benefit of us taking our time or going through this. But we've had a lot of projects that have come up as we've been going through our update. And yes, that is something we have taken in consideration. We have the benefit not only of having a staff member that has some forestry and some arborist type training, but we are also working to get others in our staff trained. That is something that through staff development we are looking to, you know, make sure that we have an expert and make sure that we have people that are looking at that. We are putting that language in there. We can always adapt it some more. I know, I'm gonna look at Katie and make sure, I know we put in there about changing some wording to undisturbed buffers. That makes a very big difference. A buffer versus an undisturbed or a preserved buffer are 2 different things. I think we learned that at a meeting recently. And we're going to put the right language in there. We're going to be consistent throughout the document. Once again, we had it in some places and not other places. We're also going to be, when we talk about that 15 trees per acre, we're going to make sure that we talk about whether it's planted, preserved, how there will be some instances, as we've learned, that they do have to take the trees out because of fill. But you want to add something?
Yeah, there's also something. This is definitely going to be an evolving process. I think long after we even update this round, because there's coordination needed with the various utility companies. What we're finding is SRC is requiring a buffer to remain, and then the utility company is coming behind us and saying, "But that's where our water lines need to go, and we don't want them anywhere else." So that's something that we are having to work with those companies on their policy decisions as well to be able to have those natural buffers. That's a big obstacle right now for staff review committee. So, like I said, I think we're trying to put some language in there, but it's going to continuously be a work in
We
progress.
want this to be a dynamic document. We want to be coming to you as we're learning things and refining things. We don't want to wait 5 years, 10 years before we're looking at this document again. That is absolutely not proactive and not the way we want to do things. But if we have a project like the one that we just heard, that I-95 buffer is a great place to have that. There's not water lines, there's not utilities going through there. On the other side, if it was on Medical Center Drive, it might be a little different. There will be a buffer. It won't be the same preserved, undisturbed buffer. So we've got to do some give and take in our SRC process and with the ordinance and learn what fits best for our area with these experts' help, with not just doing this. We've finally gotten some tree list, some local native tree list. We've been using Clemson Extension. As I mentioned, we have a planner that's getting ready to do some further studies through Clemson Extension. And we want to keep learning and keep improving this ordinance. But your intentions, your direction has certainly been heard, and you'll see it as we progress through this.
So let me, a follow-up question to, which kind of disturbs me. The utilities needs can supersede our
Absolutely.
MZDL
Every time.
every time.
Every time. You can just the trees on Main Street, the cutting of the trees on Main Street. Dominion has come through and just, as a tree lover, oh, they butchered the trees. We cannot go and say you can't cut those trees back. That is, they have those rights. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Reno project is a perfect example. That water line had to go there. That was where it had to go. We couldn't move it. I think we've learned that with our traffic signal at Shortcut. There's certain things, and there's certain things the city can do that maybe a developer can't do. But there are buffers, and especially in our geographic terrain and everything that have to happen the way they.
Should we know where those utilities are before we approve a project to make them increase the buffer?
Sometimes they don't know.
What do you mean they don't know where utilities
No,
are?
and if I could tell you the number of times I've heard from certain utilities that, oh, we don't really have that great of surveys because that infrastructure was put in X amount of years ago. I mean, it's so as we're going through the process, they believe, I mean, it's going through their process as well. So they're approving it as
They approve it, then they change it.
yeah, it's not, I mean, I wish it was more simple, but that's real life right now.
Well, I understand that that's real life, but real life is the fact is that we're losing buffers because of somebody else. We need to have that information before we approve these projects, because it goes back, we say trees, and sometimes fill is necessary, but I'm no arborist. How much fill can an oak tree take around it before it'll kill the tree? I don't know. We have to have that information.
And that's information that we will have, that we are gaining through this process, and we are working on it. We're not saying we're going into it blind. We're just saying we can't do every aspect that you're asking for immediately, but we are working towards it. Absolutely. Where's that tree? Horizons or whatever it's turned into now, the K-Hove project out there. There's a tree out there that It has been on our radar from the beginning. It's been on our radar before it came in for the IMP. It's staying on our radar, and we're going to make sure it's protected. And we know what that tree needs. We've made sure that they are providing us those arborist reports and everything. The tree behind 102 Main, same situation. Even for our developing needs, we are making sure there are things out there that we are doing. We just need to continue to further that. And one rule can't change that for everything. So that's what we're trying to accomplish.
I find it very disturbing that the utility companies don't know where their utilities are.
Especially in this area of the city, the fact that BJWSA purchased the system from the city did not have records of all of that. To say that it's spaghetti in some places, I've been to a house on Furman Street where the line goes right under the middle of the house, and it was built like that, and it was approved like that. Everything's cracked in the house, but it's been like that for 30 years. And not that that's an excuse, but that's what we're dealing with.
But we have new developments coming in, and this is where we're running into this issue. So
Yeah,
let's
absolutely.
work on that.
Absolutely.
Let's go to my favorite topic. Guess what that is?
Open space or traffic?
White Hardy Boulevard. Come on.
Love White Hardy Boulevard.
Here's my concern, and it has been for a couple of years since we, Jasper County in its infinite wisdom, who wants to put moratoriums out, approved the warehouse, 2.5 million square feet of warehouse, that will have to increase the truck traffic through White Hardy Boulevard and destroy every chance we have to renovate it. But, so my question is, we already have a tremendous amount of traffic going down John Smith Road, coming out of the industrial park, and even coming down 17, the logging trucks. We all see it. There's a lot of heavy trucking. When that whole project was being discussed, Jasper County said, "Well, you can pass an ordinance and prohibit trucks from going down White Hardy Boulevard." So my question is this: can we, in the MZDO, prohibit certain heavy trucks from going through, you mentioned zones on White Hardy Boulevard, right? Can we zone White Hardy Boulevard and John Smith Road to limit heavy truck traffic?
That goes a little bit away from zoning. That goes back to the Federal Highway Commission and some other things, because it is a Highway 17 is a U.S. highway. I do not believe that we can limit the truck traffic. What we can do, and what we have built into these zones, are some traffic calming mechanisms that are automatic. Some of the landscaping, all of that is traffic calming. The parking on the street is traffic calming. Those type of things, as we make it more pedestrian oriented, which is what we all want to see, as we limit those curb cuts, as we do a number of different things, and I know it's a good thing to talk about it in theory, but we've got some proven techniques that we are incorporating in there through the zoning, through the land development regulations, that will calm the traffic and make it less desirable.
So when you say calm the traffic, you mean make it so that heavy trucking will not want to take that route?
That is the intent. That is what we've now.
That's a
Now,
back door.
now,
Yeah.
and as we work on that, that's when we can have I-95 widened and have some other things, is when DOT and like I said, the Federal Highway Commission and everything will look at that and choose whether they can have a business route versus a bypass trucking route. Right now, we don't have that ability to do that through zoning. We take it very seriously too. I'm not trying to be glib or flippant about discouraging truck traffic, but it's limited on how we can do it. But I do believe, and we've seen it happen in other communities in this area near interstates. It's going to be a challenge as we're widening I-95 because people are going to want to come down 17. We know that. But that's the importance of working with these developers, working with some of our putting, as we're looking at these ARPA funds and everything, starting in on that is true traffic calming things, the raised medians, the landscaping, the parking, and the shared access are proven ways to make it happen. So I feel confident about it. Not going to be instantaneous though. So.
Oh, no, I mean, and at some point or another, we as this council, if we're committed to that, we have to assign the money that it's going to take to put all these and all these things are in the White Hardy Boulevard master plan, right?
Yes, sir.
So
Absolutely.
at some point or another, we did the master plan. It was approved in 2019, I think. And, we've put it on the shelf. Nothing's gotten done. Nothing, well, excuse me. I back up. I know there's been some things done. But as far as the traffic calming,
Nothing's.
that has not been undertaken, and we should have a plan put forth to council. Say, okay, council, you want this done? Here's the amount of money you have to sign each year to get it done by X number of years.
I feel confident once we have this document in place. I have the backing. The staff has the backing, and I really, boss isn't here, but I can say it. I'll look at Prina and say it. I can commit that is number one priority of putting for something before we start on the comprehensive plan, which will need to happen. So it'll give me more incentive. So I look forward to it.
Okay.
This is going to be painless too, right?
Nothing's when it comes to money, nothing's painless.
I thought I had a bad week this past week, but it would be nothing compared to this. But we're committed to it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Brown?
Morning again, Mr. Mayor, council. Pleasure to be up here to have a chat with you about stormwater. I guess my question is, can I control these slides from here, or do you have it? Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. So Article 4.9 in the MZDO talks about stormwater management and such. So what we were asked to do is take a look at the Soloco design manual when it comes to stormwater, the design manual, and basically tell you what was in our MZDO that's coming out of the design manual. Essentially, what have we incorporated from the design manual? So when we first started looking at this, we thought about it and we're like, wait a minute. So we've got a design manual that's technical in nature, and we've got an MZDO that's legislative in nature. So you can't really compare the two. So you got to dig a little deeper into that situation to.
Mouse. No, down.
Oh, okay.
Just like my house.
We got to dig a little deeper into what the MZDO references, and so that's what we've done over the last several months is to do this. We presented this to the Planning Council back in December, and then shortly thereafter, we pushed the slides to the council for review. What you're going to see today is pretty much the same thing, except for I've added one slide to it. I think maybe needs to be discussed as well. So, but essentially what we've done is we've dug deeper into the MZDO and its references to give us more of an apples to apples comparison. I would ask too, if you'd like, if we want to jump to anything that you've already looked at that you have questions about in this slide presentation, I'd be more than happy to do it that way, or I can go slide by slide, whichever you prefer. So to
I
start
think we
here,
want the Cliff Notes.
say again? You want Cliff Notes? Okay, all right. We're gonna roll through this
Take us
fairly
through
quickly.
the important items of I have it in front of me. It's 16 pages.
Yes, sir.
Just, and again, if council wants it slide by slide, but
Right.
we can read those slides. But for me, I'd like the Cliff Notes on, all right, where are we, as I asked before, where are we in compliance with the Soloco? Where are we different and why?
Sure. Great Great point to start on. So essentially from this slide right here, really what we're continuing is our effort that we started in 22, where we started, hey, let's look at the two and let's see how they both compare. With this presentation, what we're attempting to do is answer a couple questions. What does the design manual solve that the MZDO doesn't, and is it applicable to Hardeeville? The background is fairly simple. You've seen this, I'm sure. This is all the regulations that go back to actually 1972 with the Clean Water Act that dictates we're not to put anything, it's illegal to dump anything into the waters of the U.S. And then it goes on from there, and you talk about the we have the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System that comes into play, and that's what we are following today. These are just the regulations that guide us in that. The next slide, if we look at the design manual, everyone knows that, has seen it, it's a collaborative effort. It presents a watershed approach. It brings out the green infrastructure, the low impact development that it focuses on quite heavily. It's been adopted by a lot of regions throughout the East Coast. However, these have been amended versions. They're not the version that you see. They're amended to fit those particular localities. We look at the MZDO, and we think about the things that go into stormwater management. It all starts with erosion and sediment control requirements. This is called out in the design manual. What I'm showing here is it's also called out in the MZDO in this section, particularly right here. And in all of these, whether it's erosion, sediment control, stormwater management requirements, minimum quality requirements, they're all called out in the MZDO right now, and they reference South Carolina DHEC regulations. South Carolina DHEC regulations follow federal and state, of course, regulations for stormwater and water quality management. One of the things I'd like to point out under minimum water quality control requirements is that last bullet where it talks about city maintains the right to determine if additional stormwater management operations or applications are needed. It's very important. So a developer comes in and he has a development, let's say it's within a half a mile of a impaired waterway that we know of out there. The city can go back and say, I need you to be a little bit more stringent on these management practices that you're proposing. We also looked at the key requirements that are called out in the design manual, and we compared it to what we see in the MZDO, again, through the references to South Carolina DHEC. When you look at the design manual, it talks about prevent stormwater impacts rather than mitigate them. That's a common engineering practice. We're all going to do that. We're going to look at that as being implied on both of these, not just the design manual, but also in the MZDO through its references to South Carolina DHEC. It's much less expensive, 9 times out of 10, to prevent something than to go back and mitigate it. I think we all understand that concept. Reduce an impervious cover in the design manual. You'll see here, I've called out the section where reduce impervious cover is discussed in the MZDO. Conserving open space, similar. When we talk about preventing stormwater pollution in the design manual, we refer to it as limit the stormwater pollution in the MZDO. Well, it depends on how you define those concepts. Prevent versus limit, I think you can look at those as being very, very similar. Reduce overall cost. Again, the design manual talks about that, reducing overall cost. What developer does not want to reduce the overall cost of their development? So I think that is another implied. So I think you look at this key requirement and you can clearly see that both the MZDO and the design manual both talk to this. Another key requirement that we looked at was best management practices. There are 13 best management practices that are called out and discussed in the design manual right now. Of those 13, the MZDO, through its references to South Carolina DHEC, basically covers 11 of those, 85%. The other two that aren't covered, green roofs and the rainwater harvesting, we don't even look at here in Hardeeville. Now, will we in the future? I'll leave that up to Brandon and her team to figure that piece out, whether we go green roofs and we go rainwater harvesting. If we do, real simple answer to that.
Pulling out War and Peace.
Jasper County has their own stormwater management design manual. How many of us knew this actually existed? Not I, until I started researching it and I found this. We already have this out there.
They probably don't know either.
Well, you're probably right.
lay awake at night wondering.
But in this stormwater design manual right here for Jasper County, by the way, Hardeeville is in Jasper County, it talks about these two items. So in a sense, all we need to do is reference this in our MZDO, just like we have South Carolina DHEC, and we've got this covered. 13 out of 13 are covered. Trying to go as quickly as I can, Mayor. Sorry about this.
No,
If we
be
look
comprehensive.
right, if we look at these 13 again, let me pull back on this here real quick because the next slide's going to go into this a little bit deeper. If we look at these 13, the third one down, infiltration. Just to give you an idea of what that means. So if we have a retention pond out there somewhere, you're going to have essentially water coming into that pond, stormwater coming into that pond, but there's no outlet for it. So the water's going to sit there. There's only two ways that it can go away. One, up, evaporation. Two, infiltration down through the ground. And that's how it's going to get treated. Infiltration is big in the design manual. They use it quite a bit. City of Bluffton as well talks a lot about their use of it. So you got to ask yourself, why is that? Why are they talking about that? And what else needs to be understood about infiltration? So if I go to the next slide, what we're going to talk about is infiltration and type of soils. Type of soils is very, very important when you're talking about what's going to run off, what's going to infiltrate into the ground. What you see here is an overview of our region. You see the island, of course, Bluffton's in the middle, Hardyville is over to the west. As you know, when we take this and we lay our hydrologic soil layers over top of that, this is what we see. You can clearly see a difference between Hilton Head, between Bluffton, and where Hardyville sits right now. What you see over in Bluffton and Hilton Head are soils that are conducive to infiltration. In other words, they'll absorb that water. They'll take it down. They'll treat the water through that process. If you look over in Hardyville, you see a lot of yellows, you see darker browns and such. What that means is water's going to run off mostly. So we have to, here in Hardyville, have to look at that and design our systems to control that through that type of runoff, if you will. Infiltration may not be the best solution in Hardyville. Another key requirement that we looked at is this. It's maximum extent practicable. This is a definition that's called out in the design manual, basically saying, hey, do everything you can to eliminate the maximum extent of the pollutants that are in the water, essentially. The Clean Water Act, I'm not going to read it to you, but you can see it there, how it essentially defines it. South Carolina DHEC, the NPDES program, which is what Hardyville follows right now, if you will, talks about building it such that the maximum pollutant removal to the extent that any kind of discharges downstream will not negatively impact water quality. That's what we are following right now through our SRC program and such here in the city of Hardyville. One other one, South Carolina DOT. Everybody's like, why are you talking DOT? Well, because DOT has a lot of infrastructure that runs through Hardyville. We need to know what they're dealing with when it comes to stormwater. So you can see here clearly what their definition of maximum extent practicable is. And I'm going to read this one. So it's the level of effort deemed necessary. Deemed necessary by who? By those professionals that do this type of work day in and day out. So it's the level of effort deemed necessary to comply with state and federal water quality goals, considering the common knowledge of pollutants in discharges, the impact that these discharges are going to have on water quality, and commonly used engineering design standards. That's a pretty good definition, I think. It's pretty comprehensive. The design manual, if you look carefully at it, it basically follows the words of the Clean Water Act, saying pretty much the same thing. The only thing it talks about a little bit further is a fee in lieu. Now, what does that mean? The design manual calls out a process or a method whereby if the developer or the contractor cannot meet the requirements that the design manual calls for, then they can pay a fee to the city, and the city will take care of that. Well, here's some questions for that. Who in the city decides that? Who installs that? And then more so, who maintains that once it's installed? So that's a very complicated thing to take a look at, a fee in lieu. All right, if a contractor says they can't do it, and hey, all right, well, the city will do it, you'll just pay us to do it. I think we have to be careful with that one because, one, necessarily have the staff to do that. Two, we got to be careful with what that fee is actually going to look like. Is that fee going to include for the lifetime of this facility, if you will, to maintain it? Perhaps. Something that needs to be decided. So that's a very, very tricky place to go, I think, if we decide to do that, go fee in lieu. So
But
off of this,
that's our option. This doesn't force us to accept the fee in lieu.
No, it doesn't, sir. What I'm showing here is that there's an alternate to, if a contractor can't do it, the design manual says, hey, well, you can also have a fee in lieu. Right, so in other words, if the contractor can't do it, then the city will do it.
Takes the two of us to agree.
Yes. So on this slide here, clearly, I go with the South Carolina DOT definition of maximum extent practical, because again, I think it's the most comprehensive, straightforward way of looking at it. Moving on to the next requirement that's in the design manual is water quality. Again, the design manual focuses mainly on water quality. They also call out water quantity, well, in terms of water quality. The biggest thing to take away from this is they talk about whenever development or construction is complete, the stormwater will go back to the pre-development levels. And if you look at the MZDO, you'll see the exact same thing. Maximum extent removal to the pre-development levels. South Carolina DOT has their water quality guidance as well. Essentially, what we're saying here is all agencies comply with water quality standards by encouraging removal of pollutants to the maximum extent. That's happening already. If we stick with water quality, which I'd like to do here real quick, this next slide shows impaired waters in and around our area. So real quickly, this comes right out of the South Carolina Watershed Atlas off the South Carolina DHEC website. It's hard to see here, but hopefully in your slides, you'll see what look like red footballs. They should be red dots, but they look like red footballs. I apologize for that. That shows essentially at locations that they've tested and they have some impairments. What are those impairments essentially? Impairments in Jasper County consist of mercury, dissolved oxygen, Entero, which is a bacteria from humans, animals, food, water, soils. You have E. coli out there, bacteria from humans, animals. You have turbidity, which is essentially suspended solids in the water, which causes it to look cloudy. Essentially, your erosion from your construction sites and developments are the major cause of that turbidity, the cloudiness in the water as we go forth. Impaired uses right now in Jasper County, according to the reports that we've read. Aquatic life, of course, is impacted because of some of these impairments. Recreation, swimming, you got to be careful where you swim in certain areas because of that impairment. And then consumption of fish, mainly because of course, mercury, right, that's in the water out there. So you got to be careful. You catch the fish, be careful eating those fish. If you look at this and you go a little bit closer in on Hardeeville, what this slide is showing us are the three that are closest to the city limits of Hardeeville. You got one up in the northwest, Savannah River, Beck's Ferry Landing. You see what you have there, the impairment is mercury. You look at Millstone Landing, mercury. You look down to the southeast, the New River at 170 testing station, mercury and Entero. Okay, so those are the three.
Cartrack.
Yes, those are the three that are closest to us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to mention that. Cartrack development will be close to the river, New River 170 testing station. So we'll need to keep a closer eye on this as we move forward. The wetland buffers that are already out there right now, along with what the developer is putting in place, should be enough to treat the water that's going to go to this area so that we won't have any more negative impacts in this area. We need to keep a watch on that, though, for sure. So one of the things that we could do, perhaps, for developments or construction, which directly impacts impaired waters, similar to the Cartrack, is let's say within a half a mile of the impaired waters, should consider more strict best management practices as to not impact water downstream, the water quality downstream. But again, if you remember back on slide 5, the MZDO already authorizes the city to say to a contractor or a developer, hey, I want more stricter best management practices in place. So we've already got that in our MZDO that says we have the authority to do that. Yes, sir.
What I'm particularly concerned, and Cartrack's a vivid example, so I'll focus in on that. But we had some specifications in there even when we annexed that there would be measurements, and obviously there's a need here. Is there something in here to make sure that there is, when we have this, that there is no further deterioration of, and because this is particularly, as you can see on the other map where the footballs are, that's right at the headwaters of the May River. It's a great swamp there. So we all knew it was an environmentally sensitive area, and I just want to make sure that we have, some strictness in these type of areas that are already failing in some of the measurements, that doesn't get worse.
Yes, sir. As first of all, this brings it to light as it's moving through the SRC processes and other things, and that helps a lot that we're going through this. We're adding some of these things, but as John mentioned, that those buffers are key, and we're making sure the experts are keeping in touch with us, and we're monitoring it through SRC and other things as we go. So timing was perfect on this for us. So yes, sir, it will be adhered to.
I have one question regarding all of this. Do we have somebody specifically in the inspections who is trained in erosion control?
Absolutely. Not only do we have our consulting engineers that we work with, but Mr. Boyd is now SEPSI certified, and Katie is one of the better experts just through experience and time through Bluffton and here. And we're continuing looking at growing and getting those certifications and making sure staff is working together, as well as our code enforcement officer also has that stormwater and SWIP training. Make sure I'm getting it all the acronyms right. So quite the team looking at all this right now.
Okay, because we have a responsibility we can't fix what's already happened, but we have a responsibility not to let it happen anymore. And I believe erosion control on every one of these developments that we're going to have going is going to be critical to that.
Okay, so let's carry on with this. Where was I on this other slide here? I don't like this mouse. Stand by. All right, so we're right here. We're talking about these three that are really, really kind of close to the city limits here. If anything, those are the areas of interest that we have right now, and you can see the pollutants that are at both of those areas. So now, if I go to the next slide, what I'd like to do is focus more in on the Becks Ferry Landing. Becks Ferry Landing is in yellow there. You can see where that's at. Millstone Landing will be just to the south on the Savannah River. So what I was thinking as I was looking at this is, okay, what's causing that? Where's that coming from, that pollutant, if you will? Two things popped out just looking at Google Earth. Just to the north, you have the Jasper Power County, or the Jasper Power Generation Station, the Perrysburg Water Treatment Plant. Now it's treated water kind of flows right into the Savannah River. So here's the question you have there is that contributing anything? Then you've got over to the right, the Georgia Power Plant, McIntosh. Of course, it's retired in 2019 is what the research shows. However, is there still residual out there that's flowing through the waters? We don't know this. But what they're doing, they're picking up mercury at Becks Ferry Landing and then further down to Millstone Landing, if you will. So looking at National Wildlife Federation report that they had written, they bring up coal-fired power plants are by far the largest source of mercury pollution in America. So can't go and positively say that these are now coal-fired power plants that are happening. Maybe they're being being fueled by something else right now. But I would say sometime in the past, these probably were. So looking at that and thinking through it, is it industry we need to be looking at, or is it housing developments more so that we need to be looking at? So some of these things need to be discussed. It's more than just construction and housing developments and things like that we need to be focused on. There's industry out there that are doing things as well. So in conclusion, gosh, I got through that fairly quick. What I'm trying to show you here is the design manual and the MZDO. They cover much of the same topics. When it comes to better site design, when it comes to best management practices, to water quality, to the definition of MEP, or maximum extent practical. You'll see all these topics covered in both of these documents. So the question then at the bottom there, so what problem does the design manual solve that the MZDO doesn't? Again, I think it goes back to, particularly when you think about the car tract, if you will. Perhaps it provides further BMP, best management practice, consideration for development and construction, which may directly, say within a half-mile, discharge stormwater runoff to impaired waters. However, Hardyville, through its DA, PDDs, and other contractual agreements, addresses impaired waters right now. So doesn't change the fact that we probably need to take a little bit harder look at these particular developments that come across the SRC, and I think that's what we would do. The last slide here is a recommendation slide that we put in front of the Planning Commission. First one there is adopting and amending sections from the design manual to include Chapter 3, minimum control requirements, Chapter 4, stormwater best management practices. Why do I say that? Because we've already shown that best management practices, I can show you the MZDO, and then the Jasper County Design Manual covers everything that the design manual does as well. However, I think we go ahead and we amend it to say, hey, consider it. Design professionals, consider it. There may be something in there that would spark something for our design folks to make something better. We shouldn't limit them on that. Include the Jasper County Stormwater Management Design Manual in the MZDO section. Again, just like I asked here this morning, did anybody even know that existed? I don't think many people do. I think I didn't until we started researching it and finding it. So I think it's a good document. It was written for Jasper County, and so I think it's something that we need to take a look at. The third one down there is just adding another section of the South Carolina DHEC regulations that's not in our supplemental regulations right now. Defining the MEP, maximum extent practical, like I had mentioned, following the SCDOT, I've got no problem recommending word for word that be put into our MZDO. Adding a statement in the MZDO here, again, minimum water quality standards. This is, again, towards the permanent water quality, just making sure that water quality is a high priority for all of our developments and our construction that are going on in Hardeeville. And then the last thing is the design manual applicable to Hardeeville? That was the second question, and I think yes, it is, but only in amended form. We need to work on that, and my intent would be, if you approve this, is to work with our design professionals, our consultants, along with the planning and development team to figure out what the best amended form would be for us to use. That's all I've got. Any questions?
I know I joked, but the Jasper County Design Manual, did they adopt this? Is that the adopted Soloco? So they did. I know, because the reason I asked, I know Beaufort County did in some form, because they already got an award for it, supposedly. So is that design manual a manual from like the turn of the last century?
No, sir.
It is, I think, the date on this, so it's just over a decade old. But that should not really matter because the concepts and principles that are in there still apply today. And it's very similar to what you'll find in the design manual as well.
Okay.
It was done through consultant, I believe Thompson Hutton worked on that a while back. It's one of those, we talk about sitting on the shelf, and there hasn't been a lot of discussion about it. It's there. We need to access it, I guess. That's the right word.
I think so.
Well, I'm no expert, but I think the objective is, you know, there's change in people all the time. You mentioned, well, we're all concerned. What I'm concerned about is when you're not here. I'm not here this time next year. Mr. Zimbor's not. We don't know who in that room is going to be here. There's got to be written guidelines that take our principles that we believe in, put it in writing so the next people can come in and they have a standard that we believe in, or you believe in, because this is more your.
So I if I could, do they have a copy of the edited version of the MZDO? Okay, so in there you should see, in there should be, I guess in yellow, what we've, from this brief here, what we've recommended be
Yeah,
changed.
this seems wonderful. And if that was the Cliff Notes, I can't imagine what the book looks like.
We've thoroughly enjoyed working with him and getting what Katie and I can't verbalize. He's able to give us, and this amount of research has been magnificent.
I come away with saying, okay, it's in good hands. I can go to sleep. Take it away.
If I can interject, I think this is great. The only thing I don't like, and of course, and we're gonna have to live with that, is that fee in lieu. Fee in lieu. That's why the go where the mayor has gone with this, is we got to make this tight, because I don't want to do fee in lieu. I don't want to leave that up to somebody 5 years down the road, this fee in lieu. Developers or anybody else that comes in here that's going to build in our community needs to follow the rules. They can't be expecting to pay some money and put that responsibility back onto the city.
Sure. It's a great point. And so again, that's what the design manual proposes. Hey, if your contractor can't get it done the way you say it needs to be done, city, then you can say, hey, you're going to pay me then, contractor of the city, and I'm going to go out and do it for you. That's the design manual. Again, when it comes to amending the design manual to fit Hardyville, perhaps that gets pulled out. And we use the things that we can use out of the design manual to make it better for our design engineers for consideration and such as they go forth with the developments.
Understandable. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, I have one question. Pardon my ignorance, but what's a green roof?
So a green roof would be, think about this. So if this is a roof right here of a building, what you would see on there would be small trees, green spaces, and things
gotcha.
like. They would build it up so that they could utilize that for more green.
Gotcha.
Then you get a
Thank you.
code to keep it mowed down. If you go to Europe, you will
You'll
see
see it,
this. Yes, you will.
yeah.
If you think back to Carrabba's about 10, 15
Yes.
years ago, Carrabba's always had the green roofs. They've moved away from that in our area, mainly because the plants that grow need a lot of water on the roof, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some pros and cons to that we would need to explore some more.
I have one question on your last slide, the bottom. It's, the design manual works for Hardyville, but in its amended form. And my question is, to do the amending and go through this and get everywhere in the amended form that you want to do, what's the timeline on that? What do you think, time-wise?
You know, Mr. White, that's kind of hard for me to really say right now. All I can say is that I would work with, like I said, with our consulting partners, because they're going to bring a wealth of knowledge to the table as to how, because they've already worked here, and how it should be written and read. Maybe I could go back to Katie and I visited with Bluffton on their process and how they got to where they are right now, and maybe take a look at what it took them, you know, how much time to actually amend, you know, the design manual to fit Bluffton.
Would your guess be 6 months or a year?
I think it would be much sooner than 6 months.
Yeah.
Because again, what we're asking here is we amend, we adopt chapters 3 and 4. Chapters 3 is the water quality. Chapter 4 is the best management practices. Let's take those, focus on those.
Yeah, they seem like done deals, those.
And then we can work to just amend those and say, okay, here's what we're going to put into our MZDO.
Okay.
Well, we're not going to put, well, I recommend we don't put it word for word in the MZDO, but we reference it.
Okay.
That's how we should do that. MZDO should stay legislative and let the design manual stay in the technical references.
I think getting it into that amended form of what you've just described is very critical.
Yes, sir. Indeed.
Thank you.
To wrap it up, that's our overall presentation. Once again, I like to say that we've put a lot of thought and heart into this, and hopefully we have hit the high points of changes. Yes, council has the right to approve, disapprove, approve with any additional changes. I just want you to keep in mind that the planning commission did put some time into this, and sorry it took long to get it here, but I'm happy about the state it came to you in.
Great, thank you. I know there's a lot of hard work, and you all, I'm very proud of the work that you did,
Thank you.
including the planning commissions.
Absolutely.
Send our compliments.
We only fought a little bit, but I think it all for the best. So, thank you.
Okay. ARPA, the plan that keeps on giving.
Yes, sir. So Mr. John come down and Miss Jody and Mr. JB. We just wanted to give you an update. I think the council, I think you've seen this a couple times. I mean, our challenge is to get the funds obligated by the end of this year and spent in 2 years from that point. So just wanted to give you an update on the status of the projects that we previously viewed, plus the 3 new projects that we are going to propose that we use the remaining funds for.
Can you go to the one page with the spreadsheet first, please? For my part, we're just gonna run through what we had talked about originally with the funding here and then go from there. These projects A through N were on the original, that we talked about a couple of years ago, the original set of plans. Can we embiggen that a little bit? That's a word. That's a word. That's a word. Is it really? It is. Look it up. So we had the essential worker premium pay. I'm going to leave for John and Jody to go through all the projects we have here. But from a financial standpoint, council approved the $3,623,308 that we had, that this is how we were going to use it. Then we have through November what has actually happened, and then the balance that got left remaining is that $2,625,000. Now I am adding the interest in, so instead of trying to spend the $3,623,000, currently through the December interest, it's $3,781,000. So we've made almost $160,000 in interest that we're applying. We're keeping the money separate, of course, so we're applying that money to these. So in the funds available to reprogram, we have $680,000 that we can reprogram. And our thought is, as we reprogram those funds, we're looking at phase 2 of the natural gas to downtown for businesses. We've talked about that, I think, since I've been here. So that's exciting to see that on there. Finalizing the recreation center parking, and then the police department parking redesign and construction for another almost $380,000 is what the reprogramming would be. So before the people who are actually doing the work get started, did we want to talk anything about what you see here on this spreadsheet?
So, John, we're on the reprogramming funds,
Yes, sir.
on the one column, it has those bottom 3 things, it's 679,000. So where does that come away from?
That's coming from, like, if you look at A, we had proposed for essential worker premium pay back when this all first started, $180,242. Well, that actual number was $807,000 or $807 less than that, because we had some people who were on the
Oh,
list
okay. So
who
this is,
actually did it were not here.
all right.
And then if you
now
go
I'm
and you
following.
look at other projects where it's cost less, or different things like that. Like if you look here, the John Smith culvert, we realize now, John Brown will correct me if I'm wrong, as he's looked at it since he's been here, we don't need to do that. So that's $85,000 of ARPA money we had planned to spend that we now know we don't need to spend. So that's how it got in this available to reprogram column to get us to the 680.
So, on the Veterans Park, why are we taking away $90,000? Because Veterans Park in its entirety is far more than $300,000, is it not?
Correct. Mr. Davis would need to speak to that, but the amount or the work that we anticipated that would cost $300,000 is actually costing $249,068. So for that piece of Veterans Park that we had approved, we're not going to spend that other $90,000.
That's design funds.
So that, go back to my question. Since Veterans Park, or that whole municipal hub is going to cost millions of dollars. Shouldn't we save it for that?
Well,
I mean, there's $90,000 towards the splash pads.
yeah, and Jen will have more on that later.
Okay.
But you're right. But what this project.
I'm right about splash pads? Thank you.
So, but this,
Finally.
the AM Veterans Park project, that $300,000 was set to do a specific
It's
piece of that.
just the Veterans Park, period.
That one piece has come under, that's why we have that 90,000.
Understood.
So if we're good on the spreadsheet piece, we'll let John and Jody and I guess maybe Matt talk to you about the other stuff.
Okay.
Okay?
Anybody?
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'll go line item by line item and try and keep it quick. So I think some of this is self-explanatory. Our rec center, Juju Hudson Pumps, I just talked with the designer this morning, and his second round of comments should be back from BJWSA before the end of the month. But that project is designed, and then we will be kicking off an invitation to bid for contractors to commence construction. And then our McTier Pump Station, John and I are sharing some of these, so we can bounce back and forth if you want to talk about McTier.
Yeah, I was trying to listen in to see if she went from A to C really, really quick there.
Well, we've talked enough about stormwater.
Okay, so McTier Pump, it goes to stormwater here essentially. This was a project that was put together to do a lot of heavy work at the pump itself to include an access road back there to it. I would be more than happy to take all of you back there sometime to see the swamp that this pump station actually sits in. However, since then, we've been discussing with the developer of the Royal Oaks. Yeah, Royal Oaks Phase 2 development that's going to be going back there. They are going to provide us access to the pump, so we're not going to need to put an access road back there. So that's a good thing. We've also been working with Thomas and Hutton, who's been doing some engineering for us out there as well. So what we have done is we have reduced the scope down dramatically to include some power upgrades, some pump upgrades, to lower a inlet pipe to the pump itself, and to do some cleaning on the ditch line that leads to the pump. So that's what we're working on right now.
Okay, and I'll go back to C with regard to the stormwater master plan. Thomas and Hutton has completed that. It was phased out over multiple years. We do need to set aside a workshop time to just go through that master plan, which is very extensive and a little too much to throw at you today. The John Smith Road culvert, yes, our finance director mentioned that that was deemed unnecessary. There was another culvert that existed out there that was found during that stormwater master plan. And so we've deleted that project from our books. Juju Park Phase 2 design is nearly complete, and we will be going out for invitation to bid within a few months as soon as we have the permitting tightened up with BJWSA and, of course, our planning team. The rec center turnstiles, that's all completed. The Regional Housing Trust Fund, there's nothing to really talk about there. White Hardy Boulevard code revisions, I believe that was Brenna's team that worked through all of that with you. Same with the workforce development. And then the Exit 8 sanitary sewer project, that is in for a permit with BJWSA, which we've been waiting for over 2 months on that permit to get completed. We're hopeful that that will be done by the end of this month and we can get moving on that. Our natural gas, I don't have an update on the phase 1 and phase 2 of that. Neil, did you want to add anything or? Yeah.
Hey, Mayor and Council. As we talked about the natural gas, and we did talk about it some during the retreat and stuff as well. We have signed for the first phase of that project to be extended to Main Street connection. That should be happening within the next probably 30 to 60 days. After that, they're estimating about $200,000 to extend from Main Street to the intersection of Boyd Street and cross out, getting it to the point that we can cross over to serve our properties and stuff that we own. So.
So then if you go down to the recreation center parking, we have an additional $100,000 need for that, given we've expanded the scope and we're trying to get all of the parking lot and sidewalk projects kicked off at the same time to save money on the installation. When you have a bigger construction project, you get a better bulk pricing on your paving. So 102, 104 Main Street, we have a PowerPoint, which, is this going to help me, Elizabeth, or? I believe you've seen this PowerPoint. I'm not planning to go through all of it, but what I wanted to show you today is where we're planning to allocate some of the funds. Obviously, we have to do a lot of renovation within the building to get it to a commercial use space. And then, of course, the best and most beautiful tree in all of Hardyville sits here. This is the aerial that you're looking at. And behind this property, number 1 and number 3, that is land that we own that we're planning to turn into additional parking for that municipal hub, and of course to utilize for the staff that will be placed in this building, our EOC building, and our police department courts building. So we did not obtain this section of land here that's labeled number 2. We were hoping to try and get that when we did the real estate transaction for 102 and 104. Unfortunately, that owner is not available. So we're still working on that because it would be great land to incorporate into the police department. But some of what we're trying to do is when we make this new parking area, we want to redesign how this looks and flows because it just is not conducive to its current use. Obviously, it was there for Hargrave's use and laid out in that fashion for however they may have received their deliveries. I don't know. It's just, it's a lot of squirrely ins and outs that we don't have the turn radius we need. So along 102 Main Street, what we're planning is to keep the existing driveway that's here on this side of the building. And then this parking in the back would be for guests and ADA purposes. And then staff parking would be along this side with access for our EOC individuals to park here. And then we'd have to rework this as a one-way exit. So they'd come in and exit through here because we're keeping traffic away from the canopy of the tree. And of course, an arborist will be involved, and we will have every recommendation necessary to remain constant with that tree. Some of the interior upgrades and exterior upgrades, I mean, this is very minimal lipstick on a pig kind of budgeting. It's adding that ADA ramp and renovating some of the things that are obvious, but there will be some unforeseen conditions. So once we get in and we do our building assessment, it's possible this will change. Some of the design concerns, we believe we have to tie into sewer. It's not confirmed yet, but it's believed that it's septic. There is some asbestos tile in the attic, which we will not disturb. Doesn't mean we have to renovate and remove it. We just won't utilize the second story. The ADA requirements, obviously this was a residential property. It has to be compliant for commercial space. And then MEP, we did do a few assessments on that. Not all of it needs upgraded. Some of it is in good working order, but there are things behind the walls that we have yet to determine if that will need replaced. Again, I talked about the arborist for the tree, some landscaping, parking for our staff, converting the garage into a possible studio for media. We've got fire codes to worry about. The restroom upgrades are going to be the bulk of the money. And then converting the kitchen space into more of a commercial break room / lobby area. So that gives you a very quick overview of what we've been planning, but if there's any questions on 102, 104, I'm happy to address them.
Could you go back and just put those, the money, yeah, just for a second?
Okay, yeah. So again, exterior upgrades. This was a quick and dirty assessment of if we tried to get in there and just do work with what we have. That's not implementing any new exterior facades. It's taking what we have and cleaning it up.
And the one before that, please.
That one was to get us the cost estimates for the parking lots. And then the interior upgrades were the third slide there. Yeah.
Is the HVAC system workable, usable?
It is working, and it has been operational. We've been keeping it cooled and tempered. We're not allowing it to sit and, yeah.
Will it be configured for the new, I guess, is it workable for what we're changing the building to do?
Well, it hasn't been confirmed what we're changing the building to do, but as I understand, it would be a great space for our new communications, IT, and media department. It's workable. There's a lot of space in there. It's a great building for creating at minimum 7 workspaces for staff members to go and.
Converting the garage into a usable studio, you have to figure in HVAC for that.
We do, yeah. It's doable.
Is it a old HVAC system? Is it pretty current?
No, I'd say it's about 5 years old, so it's not too bad.
And it's energy efficient?
I don't know about that.
We'll find that out real quick.
Yeah, I'm certain that there are going to be areas within the building envelope that need sealed. So that would be part of, well, yeah, that would be part of the initial building assessment that our architects will look at, and the crawl space below, and just, yeah. It'll be tightened up nice.
The recreation center parking of $100,000.
Yes.
Is that enough to complete the entire area?
Well, the entire area, it's a pretty broad statement. No, it would not complete everything that that I understand we want to accomplish back there. But for the design scope that I have currently under design, we're hopeful that that will hit the point where we can get it done, yes.
What's the scope of the $100,000?
It was adding additional paving to areas left of the basketball courts. I'm not sure if I can give you that visual, but where you have the roundabout. So it's adjacent, the roundabout, and the basketball courts.
Oh, so that's,
Oh, I'm sorry, rec center. Okay, rec complex, rec center. Okay, so the rec center, yes. We are hopeful that that additional $100,000 will complete phase 2 for that parking.
will complete
Yes.
the plan for parking in that area
Yes.
behind.
In the
Yeah.
back area, yeah.
And the $200,000 and the other $200,000 that we have some left over, that's phase 1 and 2 of how many phases to get natural gas all the way through downtown?
That I haven't been a part of. I'm sorry, but I don't know. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, so the phase 1 is bringing it to 17 in Main. So where the laundromat is, right, that 4
Right.
corners. And then phase 2 is down to Boyd Street. So it could serve both sides of 17 and our municipal complex. So all the properties, the 6 acres that we own, plus all the municipal buildings, police department, EOC, fire station, the library, our old city hall, and both sides of 17 to Boyd Street. And that's what we have at this point.
Do we have any estimate, Mike, where I'm going, what will it take to complete it all of White Hardy Boulevard, all the way down to exit 5 and to John Smith?
Well, just tell you what, Neil can come up, and I don't want to joke about this, but I mean, almost 9 years to get to this point.
Oh, I know.
I mean, and I'm not trying to be funny.
I've been with you for the
And
9
you know,
years.
you've been in those groundhog meetings with us for years, but I think once we start making methodical progress, they can give us an estimate. The problem is, again, I don't want to go on a tangent and a rant, but I mean, the majority of this cost, unless we have bona fide users that are willing to sign an application and complete installation of natural gas, most of the cost is going to fall on the city. I mean, we got to pay the bill. We pay the bill, we give them the infrastructure, which they make money of. I've never heard that in any place in 30 plus 8 years. I'm starting to rant. 38 years that the customer puts the infrastructure in, pays for it, and gives it to a utility provider to make money. I've never seen, but my point is this. I think we're methodically moving down the road, and if we press to say, we need to go to the exit 5, it needs to go to the Hardyville Commerce Park, I mean, we can get it done, and we'll get an estimate, but it's gonna be significant.
Mayor, if you look at the $200,000 that they're proposing to get us to the next stage to Boyd Street, I think it's about 0.8 of a mile. So if you're not cutting any, going across 278, staying on that one side of the road, you can average about $200,000 for every 0.8 of a mile all the way down to exit 5. Then as many cuts as you make, that's additional costs on 278 and different things of that sort. And like Mr. Sembor indicated, the businesses and stuff, whether or not they're willing to, and some of them are not even able to do it. Some of them have built their restaurants and stuff, and they can't make that conversion very cheaply. They would have to replace everything anyways. So we're trying to look at now what potential customers and stuff they may have to lessen that load and stuff for us. But right now, there's not been a whole lot. I mean, the dry cleaners did come on board to say they would do it. And we
We've been
tried to,
asking it since I've been here. The first time I met them, they were asking for that.
and that's correct. So their major target areas, if you look at 278, is which places has the propane tanks. They have the propane tanks. They can do the conversion over to natural gas. A lot of them don't. Then also we've dealt working with trying to Hispanic groups and stuff that own the restaurants through there. They've been very reluctant to even respond to the questionnaires or whatever. That's
They're on propane, and Rick Patel's corner is propane, right? So,
some are, yes. That's
because I know he's spending a lot of money on propane every month, or what I've heard.
and that load of restaurants is what lessens that load with us. If we do, say, multifamily or different things of that sort, it does somewhat, but they're pushing for those restaurant type businesses to get that load down cheaper. So
This is, we talk now about what's there now. We got to think about what may be there 5, 10 years from now as we move forward with the White Hardy plan in the downtown hub. Those existing buildings and businesses could change, and that's why the gas needs to be there. It's the next user who's may want that gas.
and they do have a project just south of exit 5 that they've told us about that they are putting in simultaneously. This is on them. They're putting that in. And then they also tell us about going through the Riverport area, getting gas that way through their major trunk line coming from the south. So
They'd be doing that on their own.
they're working on those projects and stuff now. So the project they mentioned south of exit 5 is just south of exit 5. They are working on that now as we speak to move forward with the one on 17. They've always told us in the past is that 17 coming south, if you're like the one that's going down Main Street right now, doesn't necessarily have the capacity to service the whole city. So you have to bring it from the south up to get the like the industrial park services, different things of that sort.
I agree with Mike. This is crazy. It's just an odd concept to do this. But we have to, if we're going to modernize White Hardy, we have to look at that.
Program.
Okay, thank you for that update. Now we go to the proposed 5-year projection and use of accommodation tax funds.
Yes, sir. So I think a month or so ago, we did present part of the ATAX. Mr. John went through kind of the history and went through what the statutory language says. And we did talk about it recently with our retreat. So we wanted to revisit it just for the council's advocation, as well as talk about using available funds for projects. And I think the council knows if we don't use the money that we've collected, we have to return it. So obviously, we need to get aggressive about using these funds or dedicating these funds under that for projects that comply with the statutory requirements. Mr. John.
Okay, while they're finding the presentation, I'll just review. We have the state A tax, the local A tax that y'all are familiar with. Part of the state A tax goes to the first $25,000, and then 5% comes to the city, and then the indirect is the 65% for the advertising and promotion of tourism, And then the direct is the 30% of that, which is what we use for our DMO. And so anyway, so then my next slide talks about there has previously been 6 items that we could use local A tax for. And there is now a 7th, and the 7th, of course, is the one that we've talked about quite a bit recently, and that's the development of workforce housing, which must include programs to promote home ownership. Here we go. Thank you. See, we're right here. This is the new piece where we can use up to 15% of our local A tax revenue for the purposes of workforce housing. And of course, the staff's read is the council is quite interested in this. So we started with doing some projections of what would that look like if we did this. So you see currently, what do we use our local A tax and our local H tax for? We're paying off the debt of the rec center. The current outstanding debt is not quite $6.5 million. And the rate on there's 2 notes. One has an interest rate of 3.10. The other has an interest rate of 3.73. Now, currently, we're earning on that money, on our local A and local H money, we're earning 5.67%. So, right now we're earning more than we would pay. But should that number get close, or should we want to, we certainly will have some funds to start paying down that note outside of the normal biennial note payments. And then we have some options that we wanted to talk about, which is review funding a PRT position for sports tourism, and then also using the 15% of the local A tax for workforce housing as is now allowed. So if you see here, unfortunately, that top line is supposed to be a green line. That's the PRT position. And Jen can talk more about what that position will do, but that position all in is about $7,000 a month. Should we decide to go forward with that, we'd be able to bring this person on hopefully in March, but with hiring being what it is, it could certainly be later than that. And then we see if we carry that out for a full year in 25 and we go out through 30, we're spending some money there. And then you see the 15%. This is 15% of revenue. And then again, as we talked last week, these revenues, if anything, are very conservative. So there's liable to be more rather than less. We feel like we're very conservative with this number. So when you look at the workforce housing number, 15% is just under $100,000 a year that we could use for the workforce housing piece of it. So what does all that mean? That means that as we go through fiscal 24 all the way through fiscal 27, our local A tax balance is still slated to grow from $1,350,000 to $1,771,000, and then none of what we're talking about impacts the local H tax, and that balance could go from 1.6 to 3 million. And the last time I think the mayor focused in on after 30 years we could have this 4,777,000 in the bottom right hand corner. So anyway, that's if we do all of these things, what our conclusion and our recommendation is that should council decide to do both of the 2 things recommended, there will be plenty of money for plenty of A tax and H tax money or revenue to fund both the rec center debt or the 15% A tax and the PRT position that we're proposing. And that's what I have. Any questions on that, or are you guys ready for Jen?
I just have your projections of growth of funding availability for those 2 items. You feel those are reasonable?
Yeah, the cost of the position, we feel like that's certainly going to be, we'll certainly be within those numbers. And then the 15%, that's just 15% of the revenue number at the top of that chart.
But we're limited to the 15%, correct?
Not do more than 15%. You don't have to do anything, but you can only do 15% or less.
Okay, I have to say, I'm favoring the PRT position. The only thing that I have, and it's way down the road, where we're gonna be spending more on that position than we will on workforce housing. And as I see that expense coming, it's just something to think about in the future.
Again, assuming quite conservative revenue numbers, you'll probably see that be, that'll reverse.
Okay,
But I
that's what
just,
wanted to-
and when I give you guys a projection, I don't want to be pie in the sky.
Okay, thank you. That's what I really wanted to
Mr.
hear.
White?
That position, I'm sorry, I can't read it. What is the annualized amount of that position?
It is 80, we're figuring for this year, it's 28,000, but we figure all in for a first year, it would be $84,000. That's salary, all the benefits, the health insurance, our portion of taxes, everything.
Thank you.
Has he come with 3 PhDs in Little League coaching?
I'm going to turn it over to Jen for that one.
Are we paying him enough to live in Hardyville?
He can buy Hardyville at this salary.
Yeah. So, just as a quick reference on that salary, again, Mr. Boyle said that is all in. So no, it will not be advertised as $84,000. That would be more than what I make. So no, that is not. Like I said, that is all in. But I did, like I said, I wanted to bring this to you all because last year during the budget year, of course, everybody else out there, including the chiefs that just love to razz me. As they're shaking their heads.
Everybody wants the same money.
ATAX, is really built for recreation. It literally takes that ATAX money back, from those that are traveling 95, and it gives the opportunity for us to put it back into our own community, and again, bring more to our area. Less, economic development, all that kind of stuff. So when we came to you all during the budget season, we understand wholeheartedly, we understand that you all have a lot of, requests, not only from me, from everyone else that's in the audience as well. And it becomes very difficult for you all to make those decisions. So we got to business. We got down and dirty, and we tried to do a lot of research, went outside of our area, contacted Rock Hill, contacted Turk, all of those different things to see exactly what we could do. And so this is pretty much the result of that. Again, sports tourism, I think all of you know what it is, and I think everyone kind of has a different idea of exactly what sports tourism is. We do sports tourism right now, and anyone that's in the back can see that. A lot of people, and actually I think the mayor probably touches on this quite a bit. When you go in the back in the afternoons, whether it's Tormenta or our local football teams that are playing out there, not all of them are local. You're bringing in people from Hilton Head, you're bringing folks in from Savannah, you're doing all that stuff, which essentially, excuse me, is helping to support the sports tourism in our area. But it does develop and foster the working relationships with our sports event organizers. Logan is here. He's in the audience, so I'll let him come up and talk a little bit about, what sports tourism has meant for the rec center. We believed in the rec center. A lot of folks said, you guys are never going to get anyone in there. And now we're talking about the need for parking because we're programmed beyond belief, which is a good thing. And the more and more we're going to continue to bring to our city. And also, too, wanted to make sure that this little thing right here, 90% of the paid facility usage, not only at the Recplex in the back, but also over, at the rec center, that's utilized by tourists. So if you look at what the state code says, it's an action activities of people that are taking trips outside of their home communities for any person except daily commuting to and from work. So again, we're pulling people from Bluffton, we're pulling people from the island, from Savannah, all those folks that are coming here. So again, having this position help to support and bring even more is equating to what this means. Again, another thing that we do is it's, effectively marketing sports tourism, athletics and events to enhance current offerings. We've talked about trying to do some more programming in the back with lacrosse. Soccer continues to be a mainstay in our community, especially with the Latino population. And we haven't even touched on adult soccer. So, there's so much need for it. Baseball, softball, all of our fields in the afternoons are completely booked. And they're all outside folks that are coming in to help pay for the facility. Pickleball, as many of you know, is on the rise. It's the fastest growing sport in the U.S. And we're one of the only places in our area that has indoor pickleball. So martial arts, cheer, and more. And again, we also want to work closely with the local stakeholders to create the opportunities that generate revenue through our events, different accommodations for those folks, whether it's dining, and we work closely with a lot of our hoteliers. But again, while collaborating growth and development through creative use of space, whether it's bringing folks into Veterans Park, the hub, all of that it can become, and dare I say, splash pad, sir.
Did you hear that?
The benefits again of this, and again, going back to budget year, we know that this is a position that we need. Logan and I are both trying to do the very best that we can. We are literally taking this position, and he has half, and I have the other half. He's got the rec center, and then I have the recplex in the back that I do. But trying to get the money for this is a win-win for the city. The ATAX funding to pay for the salary and benefits of the tourism rec coordinator, it saves money from the general fund. So we are essentially helping council take part of that burden off to be able to utilize funds that are outside for ATAX, so that it frees up more money, whether it's for police or fire or finance or somebody else that needs it, and that allows you all to make decisions how you can spend that money differently for the city's growth, because it's growing, it's coming like crazy. But it also provides a path to funding those positions that allow sustained growth. And it also sits with future planning and development without, again, putting the tax burden directly back onto the taxpayers. Another one of the benefits, again, working with our hoteliers, is increased spending at the local hotels and the restaurants, gas stations, and other local businesses. And I mean, we've got, 2 beautiful brand new hotels. So it's working. Opportunity for increased local ATAX revenue. Again, the more people that you have in your community, the more, as John said, conservatively, those numbers are going to increase. And again, better relationships with the event and sports organizers, and also working with improved relationships with local hospitality partners. But the bottom line with this, again, sports tourism is regarded as one of the fastest growing sectors of tourism and will create economic impact citywide. And I think you all are seeing that right now. Are we Rock Hill? No, we're not yet. But I know in our strategic meeting that we had last week, I think, just looking at some of those staggering numbers with this in the next few years, how many residents we're going to see here, recreation is definitely going to be at the forefront, whether it's open spaces, green space, events, athletics, bringing more and more people to our area. They're coming, so we have to be ready and engage. It will also allow the city to develop relationships, again, with the organizers, event planners, all the different stakeholders. And ultimately, it really does create the lasting economic impact in our area. And additionally, that bottom line is going to allow that GL funding to be utilized in other areas of need. And then we put the little economic impacts. This is directly from NRPA, which is our National Parks and Recreation Association. This is what sports tourism does to our area. That's $91.8 billion total. That's a pretty big impact. So the different jobs that it's creating for our area, 635,000, and then 12.9 billion total tax revenues. I just wanted to make sure that you all saw that. That is a nationally recognized number, and it's massive. And again, it's all really full circle. You have the sports tourism. It's increased to visitors to Hardeeville, increased spending at the hotels, more revenue, the funds to reinvest to your amenities. And it continues to move forward back and forth. So, do we have a little bit of time? When we originally planned, we looked at March. Realistically, you all know as well as I do, it's probably going to be a few more months than that just to get everything up and running. But it's a huge need for our area. It's a huge need for the community. Whether it's doing different lacrosse programs or all those different things that are not only our community is wanting, but again, what we can bring to the city of Hardeeville. And I also wanted to bring Logan up here. Nothing like giving him some OJT, but really wanted him to touch in on just what we've done at the Recreation Center as well. So if you'll indulge him for just a few moments, and then I'll be available for any questions.
Is it still morning? Good morning. So when I started as a recreation center manager in January of 2022, one of the things that Jen made sure I was clear on is that sports tourism was a priority. I know Mayor Williams, you've been at several of the events. You know, we have one main basketball court, so hosting traditional, basketball tournaments without partners isn't realistic most of the time. So I was able to get creative. I reached out to several jujitsu federations. I've reached out to cheer, tournament organizers, dance competitions, things that we can bring people to the community, outside of the basketball, that building is built for. So we've become a hot spot recently for jujitsu tournaments. They still market them as Savannah just for the market, but obviously they're located in Hardyville. The first one we did was New Breed. They have tournaments all over the world. They even have European tournaments. So that organization and the North American Grappling Association were the first two that we did, and those both had over 300 competitors plus their families. So we welcomed several thousand people to the city of Hardyville through those. Alex Percival, you were there. He brought in the basketball tournament for the local area that was alumni, and most of those people no longer live in our area. They've graduated and dispersed. So bringing those people back to the area to spend money here to visit has been really big. This person would obviously be able to help grow that as well as at the Rec Complex and make that even larger. We have at least 4 tournaments that are already on the books from now to July at the Rec Center. Those will be 3 are jujitsu, 1 is basketball. Alex is coming back to do another, hopefully larger one. So this person would obviously be able to assist with those things as well as the athletic offerings for the community. But several of our, people that play in our leagues even aren't from here. The majority of our pickleball players, some of them live in the Beaufort County side. So technically our tourists, many come from Georgia. So being able to grow those is going to be huge for the community. Thank you.
So again, just to wrap it up, this truly is the bottom line. And again, we understand council has a, difficult decision, to be able to make the right judgment calls on all these things. This is definitely, by far for us, a definite win-win situation where we're freeing up money in the general fund so that you all can make decisions for other needs. But if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
I just have a question, and a more general, and partly my fault for not knowing, but tell us a little bit about what Mel's focus is, if you would.
Yeah, so what Mel does is more local programming, and then she also works on events. So collectively,
Which one, the last one?
events.
Okay, events,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
So all of our large scale events that we do, she's in the center of all of that. And what we do in our team is again, we're all focused. So when it comes to Festival on Main, we're all working on that together collectively. But she is the strong arm of having to get all that stuff done.
Thank you.
Yes.
If we fund this position and they do that, one thing I'd like to see them person do is interact with the groups that may come in from the outside in the hotels. I'd like to see kind of an accurate number of room counts. The jujitsu and so many of those is, since they do bring in folks regionally, most all of those will have a host hotel or something that they need. We need, is this, if we fund this and as it proceeds, we need to be able to track to basically justify how this position is increasing and what it's bringing to the city. Because I do agree that more hotel rooms, I mean, geez, would it be great for someday to have this position be able to fund itself through these tournaments? The jujitsu, have you reached out to the karate clubs and the others to see if that's something that they would want to bring here? Obviously, there's success here with the jujitsu. Will the other martial arts, can they see that and utilize the facility also? You've got a good base you're started with. Somebody in this position, if they could expand that to 20 tournaments a year or whatever it's used, that would be fantastic. But as long as we can justify this position with this money and that it's going to increase revenue to the hotels and basically help fund itself, I'm all for it.
Going back to my original being here in 2015 and talking to all of the department heads, I've been one of many, I'm sure, supporters of getting this rec center built. I probably am certainly in a long list of people who are just thrilled with the success and the quality of the building and the success of what's happening. I've been helping Alex Percival get sponsors for the tournament in July. That's exactly the type of regional event that we wanted. What you all have done is just, I mean, wonderful. I can't thank you enough. You've brought a dream to Hardeeville, one that's envied around the region, I'm sure. When it comes to this, a couple of things make me uneasy in terms of making the decision now. Making a personnel decision outside the realm of the total big picture is just against all my principles of management. Deciding this position should be done in budget time. And also, we should have, just like it is at budget time, all the proposed positions should have a job description so we understand. And Steve's right, although I don't think you can ever measure the metrics. You know, how many people for coming because of this rec center are staying at the Hampton Inn? You don't know. The potential's there, but you don't know. I'm a little uneasy when I see the size of the number to bring in. I mean, I'd like to know that number versus what you make and you make. The other thing, if you look at the ARPA funds, $1.1 million out of the $3.7 million are for recreation purposes. 29% are for recreation purposes. We put a lot of money in it, and I don't dispute it. But now with ATAX, we have to ask ourselves, and this whole council, in the context of the total budget, we have $100,000 for that parking lot. Should we spend the ATAX money to finish what wasn't ever done? There were a number of things not put into that original budget. We have $6.5 million to pay off on that thing. Should we be paying more off on that debt? There are other options for that ATAX money that this council should decide, rather than just saying, okay, we need this, we're in the middle of nowhere in terms of the budget. This is not the right time to make this decision. And I think the council needs more options for that ATAX money rather than just add somebody to it. So I support it. I need, but we're going to have every department head come in here and say we're understaffed, okay? And we're going to need a lot of things. We should look at everybody before we make an individual decision for you. That's just my thought. I don't think this is the right time and the right context to make this decision.
Absolutely understood, sir. Just as a quick reminder too, that not all of the department heads can utilize this funding. I think that's the big takeaway that I want to make sure that all of you all know, is that ATAX is geared mostly towards the tourism piece. So you know, if Brana were to come up here or finance or what have you, it's not always going to be able to be supportive in a tourism aspect. So that's why we're trying to help you all make a better decision. Whether we wait, that's completely up to you all.
No, and that's a good point, and well taken. But again, we have other options to spend that money. And that should be explored before we decide to spend the money on this. Okay? And that's what the council has to decide. We just can't say, oh, we got money, so let's put it in. What are the other options for the use of this ATAX money? That's what has to be brought to us during budget time, and we have to decide collectively how we want to spend ATAX money during budget season. That's my think. I just don't think this is the right time to make that kind of decision.
Understood. And two, I think, John, if he's still on here too, I think with this particular amount of money, we also have to have it done and earmarked by the end of this year as well. So that does parlay as well into different timing if you want us to bring it back. At that time.
Right, so the end of this calendar year?
Yes, at the end of this calendar year.
The ARPA piece, not the ATAX.
The ARPA piece, but the ARPA piece, I don't think anybody's,
Yeah,
know,
even
debating.
even with ATAX, you have to use it or you're going to end up losing a portion of it. You'll end up having to give a bit of it back.
but the ATAX, we have to spend whatever the balance is by the end of this year, or have it appropriated.
Yes, that is correct. Yes. So if there's other options that we can look to bring back, and this is one of the options too, that we, you know, we had a certain pile of money and we looked at the turf field project in the back. And of course, that was a smaller blessing in disguise. And we weren't able to get that, you know, because again, our projects are, you know, they're $1 million. So when you look at what is available, we're trying to figure out how we can utilize what we've got. So, you know, again,
You came to us earlier about a turf field.
that's,
You
yes,
know,
that's what I'm
you've
saying.
got to do so many things, and so you're asking us to make a decision outside the context of all those other things that are possible. And so what I would suggest to you, suggest to the council, that we look at all the possibilities for this ATAX money that we have to spend. And there are many, you know, including the turf and that back there, paving the parking lot. What other needs do we have inside the rec center? I'm a little uneasy spending ATAX money for personnel. I think it should be for brick and mortar. I mean, but again,
Absolutely. Yeah.
look at all the possibilities and make a decision. I don't think we have all the possibilities in front of us. But if council feels differently, the three of us, then, you know, I'll go along with it. But that's just me personally.
If we postpone any decision on this, which, one way or another, until budget time, from the time this position would be posted to be filled, you have a timeline of what you see, 4 or 5 months, 3 months, what do you see?
As far as like a hiring process, it could be anywhere between 3 to 6 months. It just depends. Ultimately, we would like to get somebody in as quickly as possible.
Understandable.
And same, you know, with the projects, we can certainly bring, you know, other projects back to you all, but you have to understand those projects are going to far exceed what's in the budget.
Sure.
And I don't mean the general fund budget. I mean just the ATAX.
Right.
It's no different than, you know, when Kendall comes in and she's asking the state, you know, there are certain parameters that we have to meet with tourism, whether it's the state or the local option. And this is why we're going through the local option. So brick and mortar is definitely, I mean, I'm all for you. I wish we had a ton of stuff that we can utilize, but it's very specific about what types of money that you're using towards brick and mortar and how you can bring those tourism in. So this again is a win-win situation.
I truly believe the position is needed, but I do agree with the mayor that we need to look at the whole big picture to see where, how this shakes out. But I think the position has its merits, and maybe right now, today isn't the time to make that decision. But I believe in the position. If we wait until budget time comes around, I'll still believe in that position. That's where I'm at right now.
Brick, mortar, and water as splash pads.
That'd be a tough sell with tourism, sir. Very tough sell. That's more community-based.
Put this person in charge of a splash pad that we can have sports tourism at.
We definitely want to bring you on splash pads, and, you know, I know JB sitting back there kind of chuckling to himself, but, you know, the more and more land that we get down the road, again, you know, I mean, we're going from almost 15,000 population to 30 in the next few years. You're going to have that high demand for recreation, just as you're going to have a high demand for planning team, your finance team, your police and fire. Those are all things that we understand that you all have to take into account for. And again, that's why we're trying to think outside of that box to alleviate that pressure on you all so that those folks can utilize that funding for it, because they can't use the funding in ATAX like we can. So
If I may interject something, the development that I live in right now is experiencing too much usage of some of the recreation facilities, as pickleball, bocce ball, even the tennis courts. And yes, maybe things are planned to increase in the future as the development reaches into the car track, but that's not here, it's not now. So residents are looking to move outside of the development for some of these recreational activities. So yes, you're correct. The demand will increase.
yeah, and I think the rec center too is, you know, I mean, all of you have been there, you've seen it. You know, again, I remember, you know, when I first got here back in 18, and everyone was just, the rec center, nah, this is just going to be a huge waste of money. But, you know, the council was very persistent. And, you know, like I said, with that dream, I mean, we are your facilitators of those dreams. And I know it's kind of quirky to say that, but I mean, we see all of those folks coming in, whether it's downtown Hardyville people or if it's folks from our gated communities. Recreation is saturated in our area, and we've got to make sure that we're staying on top of part of those demands. So, and again, even the demand on us, we're definitely at capacity. So, but I appreciate you all taking the time to listen. So,
I'd just like to make one other comment, just so you get where at least I'm coming from. And that is, our concerns have nothing to do with our appreciation of the work you've done, the merit of the suggestion and the position, but more the timing of it and tying it back to the big picture. And I think the discipline we've tried to build in looking at everything collectively in terms of that, but don't take the wrong message. There's a real appreciation, and we understand what you're saying, but it's more timing than anything else in the structure we've created.
yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I appreciate all that. I mean, Mr. C knows we will bring the position, you know, forward again in the regular general fund with the option. And we'll have, you know, as many different stuff that we have. We work with John Boyle. There's just not as many projects that we can use the funding for tourism at this time that are not over and above. Your splash pad's going to cost you about 1.2. So.
And Logan,
Beautiful.
you
I
get
think we got
it
to
too,
send it to
right?
you all so you can look at it. So it is there. We do have some design stuff for you to look at. So
And for you, Logan, we since you had your on-the-job training, we want to give you the same sense of feedback. We appreciate all the good things going on.
Absolutely.
thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think lunch is ready to be served, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything else. Thank you very much.
Should we adjourn?
We can.
I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.